In a world of shared platforms and shared everything, really, Porsche's cars have managed to stand apart. Despite sharing some of its underpinnings with other members of the Volkswagen group, Porsche generally manages to separate itself from the family by making its cars feel more than a little special. When it comes to the refreshed 2019 Porsche Macan, it's a very good sporty crossover, but something feels like it's missing. Now don't get me wrong, this is still a standout in its segment, but in a world where Porsche's cars are all pretty stellar, can the Macan make it work with a B+ average? Now if you couldn't tell from the badge on the hood, let me clue you into a little secret. Porsches are generally pretty sporty. My Macan S tester is no exception, rocking Porsche's optional $1,360 adaptive dampers. Even in their most comfortable setting, well, it doesn't take more than 2 turns to suss out that this is a little bit stiffer than your average compact luxury crossover. And when you swap it in the Sport or Sport Plus modes, the thing basically anamorphs into a true sports car, taking all my input from the well-weighted steering wheel and turning it into near instantaneous lateral motion. Now that's all well and good, but most Macans I see on the road are doing daily familial duties, and in those use cases, the car is a little less stellar. In addition to the stiffness transferring more humps and bumps into the cabin, there's also a bit more wind and road noise than I would appreciate in here. Now certainly there are ways around that. You can ditch my tester's optional 20-inch wheels and summer tires. That should definitely help make things a little quieter and softer. And then there's the matter of the suspension. Opting for Porsche's $2,750 Air setup will probably smooth things out too. Some of this missing je ne sais quoi might come from the fact that I'm not entirely keen on the powertrain. Now the turbocharged V6 under the hood is plenty potent, packing 348 horsepower and 352 pound-feet of torque, but something feels off. And in this case, I think it's the 7-speed PDK dual-clutch gearbox to blame. If you put it in comfort, it shifts entirely too quickly to have any sort of on-road legal fun. Put it in Sport or Sport Plus, and it's the exact opposite. It holds revs for way too long, and it won't even so much as look at 7th gear on the highway. Honestly, the best way to have this thing act exactly how you want it to act is just leave it in full manual mode. The engine, however, is a total peach, thrusting me forward at all times with nary a bead of sweat on its metaphorical brow. It is an absolutely fine engine, but it's a little lacking in the noise department, which is kind of a surprise. But then again, there's an option for that. For about $2,900, you can outfit this guy with a sports exhaust, which will certainly cure what ails you, provided you're willing to pony up the scratch. I'm not entirely sure the Macan's visual refresh did it any favors. I'm mostly referring to the rear end here, where the connecting bit between the taillights is rather thick, giving the rear end kind of a Dodge Durango-ish feel to it. The front end, though, remains marvelous, with the right amount of sculpting and aggression on the lower part of the bumper. And if you don't think it's tarted up enough, don't worry, because Porsche will gladly convert more of your money into additional aesthetic enhancements. In traditional Porsche fashion, the Macan's seating position is nice and low, giving the car a bit more of a sporty feel right off the bat. Like every other Porsche, the dashboard is very well arranged, and I like the trim to the right of the infotainment screen. However, there is a fair amount of hard plastic in here that, while admittedly well done for what it is, still feels a bit out of place on a Porsche of any price stratum. All 5 seats in the Macan are nice though, with the right amount of bolstering on even the base power seats. There's a surprising amount of headroom for taller passengers in the rear, although legroom is a little tight. On the storage front, the door pockets are decent, but center console space is at a premium. The cargo area's 17.7 cubic foot capacity works for a small family, but it does lag behind most of its competitors like the Mercedes GLC or BMW X3. Now, some parts of the Porsche Macan tech experience are fantastic, while others could use a little bit of work. We'll start with what I like, namely the new PCM Porsche Infotainment system. Living here on a 10.9-inch touchscreen, it's one of my favorite systems on the market. It's fast, it's responsive, the text is crisp, and it's very easy to get a glance at just about anything you need thanks to its modular home screen design. Now that's great because, guess what? Can't get a head-up display in this thing. Nor do you get a whole lot from the gauge cluster, which retains its mostly analog 3-dial layout from before. There is a screen on the right side that gives you access to a few different things, your maps, your music info, stuff like that, but the graphics are kind of old school, and honestly, PCM just displays it better, so I usually just leave a couple of temperature dials there. On the smartphone front, Apple CarPlay is available either as part of a $3,110 premium package or as a $360 standalone, which is kind of horse plop considering the fact that Apple offers it to automakers for free. Hey, it could be worse. You could have an Android phone because there is no Android Auto in here whatsoever. As a little bit of compensation, however, you do get 2 USB ports in the front and rear, which is a nice little touch. If the infotainment tech is a high point for the Macan, the safety tech is a not so high point. Let's go through standard equipment. You get lane departure warning, parking sensors, and that's it. Let's say you want a surround view camera. That'll be $1,200, please. Let's say you want lane keep assist. That'll be $700, please. Let's say you want adaptive cruise control and auto brake, which is also a separate option. That'll be another $1,170, please. It's getting frustrating. In a time of safety democratization where so many safety systems are now standard on all sorts of trims, Porsche remains a notable holdout. Or, should I say, Porsche remains standing in front of you, holding its hand out. The 2019 Porsche Macan S starts at $58,600 before destination, which is actually mighty sensible until you realize you don't even get heated seats as standard. Now, my tester is lightly optioned by Porsche standards, and it rings in at about $70,000. I would probably recommend ditching most of these aesthetic upgrades in favor of, actual content, if that's where your budget lies. Now, let me just say this flat out. The Porsche Macan S is a good car, easily one of the best in its segment. In fact, I am spending most of my time these days shopping for used ones online. Yet, I feel like it could be better. Porsche loves to overachieve, it always has. Which is why, to me, the Macan feels like it's ever so slightly slacking.